The Great Fire of London is one of the first major events in English history that we tend to learn about in primary school. But how can we know what really happened back in 1666? To learn more about the original documents, maps, and eyewitness accounts that survive from that period, I've come to the London Metropolitan Archives to meet with Marina.
So Marina, what types of archival material can researchers come and examine here at LMA about the fire?
So we have a huge range of material which will give researchers a really interesting insight into the fire. And this really ranges from official documents to visual materials. So visual materials, for example, we have artworks depicting the Great Fire of London. We also have maps showing the level of destruction and plans for the rebuilding of the city, which we can also see here. We have newspaper articles, and then on the official document side, we have things like the 1667 Act of Common Council, which stipulated how some of the lanes should be widened and how streets should be rebuilt in the city. We also have a royal proclamation given to parishes asking to collect monies for the victims of the fire, so people who have been made homeless from the fire. And linking on to that, in the aftermath, we have the records of the people who gave money. And across the country, donations were given, and we have some amazing books which really detail that. Some other really interesting documents are from the Middlesex sessions, which actually detail some of the convictions that were made. For example, Robert Hubert confessed to starting the fire, but in actual fact he wasn't even in London at the time. So we've got some really rich sources from the period.
So what kind of material survives that captures ordinary Londoners' experience of the fire and its aftermath?
Well, in the years following the fire, lots of eyewitnesses came forward, mostly in front of the Lord Mayor of London, and actually explained what they had seen and smelt and experienced during the Great Fire. And we've got two of them just here in front of us. So the first one is from a John Morgan. He's a clerk. And John Morgan states that he went to his friend's garret, that's like a top floor attic room, on the 3rd of September. And he specifically says the reason that he did this was to see how near the fire was. Now, I find that really interesting because clearly our interest in major disasters is not a new phenomenon. He had gone to watch the Great Fire as it unfolded. So they're in his friend's attic room, and he says that the fire was a great way off in Thames Street. So he's a viewer. Suddenly though, and this is where it gets horrifying, a fireball comes through the window and pierces a hole in the floorboards on the corner of the room. Now immediately, obviously everyone is in shock. They didn't expect this. A fireball has been described in some cases as a lump of animal fat or tallow, which is deliberately thrown. In this case, it's more likely to be a piece of thatch or wood from a burning building in Thames Street, which has been carried by the wind. As we know, it's a very windy time. So this fireball has come through the window, and immediately they have to escape because suddenly smoke and flames engulfs the room. So they have to jump out of the window and go down 2 floors. Now, I just think this testimony is amazing because we see that moment that he experienced, the horror of the fire. Now, another of the testimonies that I really find interesting and really illuminating is this one by a Mr. B. Toller. Now, he describes some very suspicious behaviour that he observed during the fire. He explains that he caught 3 men breaking into a counting house near Holborn Bridge, and as he would, he confronted them. Now, rather suspiciously, they said that they had been sent by the Lord Craven to tell everyone that they should move on and move away because the fire would quickly be upon us. Now, quite suspicious, they are breaking into a counting house. Later on, he describes how he had employed some people to remove some hay from the Rose Inn in a bid to stop the fire from spreading. So they were putting hay into a ditch. Now, he then goes on to say that he suspects that they were not doing this job. They were in fact setting a light to the Rose Inn. So he very much believes that this is a deliberate act when the Rose Inn catches fire. Now, in the first instance, Toller describes one of the men who were breaking into the counting house as a Frenchman in a livery suit. Now, this really plays into the idea of an anti-French and anti-Catholic sentiment that was going on at the time. So again, a brilliant snapshot into the experience of the Great Fire.
So if teachers want to introduce students to this material, how's the best way to do this?
Well, I would always recommend that they bring their students here to London Metropolitan Archives for one of our free interactive Key Stage 1 sessions. Through those sessions, our engagement and learning team introduce pupils to original source material. They get to hear from the individuals themselves through these documents, look at maps, chart the course of the disaster, and they're fun sessions here at LMA. If for any reason a teacher can't bring their pupils here, we've also partnered with the Museum of London and several other arts organisations to create a website called fireoflondon.org.uk. And lots of our documents have been digitised on that website. It's a really interactive website and has an element of play through it, so children and teachers can interact with it. So I would definitely recommend checking that out.
That's amazing. And if researchers want to learn more about the Great Fire, where do you recommend they get started?
So the best place would always be our online catalogue, so LMA's online catalogue, and also the London Picture Archive, which is a website that we maintain and look after and has our collections on. So the catalogue, we've uploaded some digital documents to have a look at, and that includes some of these witness testimonies and maps. And for visual material, the London Picture Archive has a wealth of material. We've even collated a gallery together which includes all of the different materials about the Great Fire. So really best place to start.